powered by Sportsdesk.com, as we are going to shift gears here and talk a little bit about the more Week 1 high school football. And you're watching this on YouTube and wondering why the heck are we holding microphones, because you might be watching this Thursday or Friday before you head out to Week 1 games. I'm going to just explain here before we throw it to JT here. Sure. We are doing this live on Sports Use as part of MAB Weekly. So before you do that, you want to plug and see if your fandom out there will have any questions to do that when they see that, by the way? As we do this part live on the internet.
Right, yeah, we're live on Sports Juice. This is a MAB Weekly show. It's on MidAmericaBroadcasting.com. You can watch this live every Wednesday. The show begins at 5:30 Central Time and ends roughly around 7 o'clock or so. And to my YouTube audience, our show is back. The show that our weekly football picks show that we kind of took a year off. You know, things kind of happened where we couldn't do the show, but you know, we're back and we're gonna, you know, bring you live coverage every week. You know, trying to pump, you know, the best picks so you know, you can win your friends lunch money.
How about that? So without further ado,
all right. Well, Bob, you know, it was a great football season last year. You know, we saw a lot of interesting storylines, many of them coming in the Northwest Crossroads Conference. You had a team in Andrain that made a semi-state run, Hobart kind of rising to the top, and then an unexpected team that came out of nowhere, KV, Kankakee Valley, having a tremendous regular season under first-year coach Brad Stewart, and of course Maryville making another tremendous run, one of the greatest offenses we've ever seen in Northwest Indiana, making that semi-state run of their own.
Well, 2012 was definitely an interesting year in Northwest Indiana. I tell you this, the Maryville offense last year, they're still scoring touchdowns, even though most of that offense has graduated from 1 year ago. That was probably the most explosive offense I have ever seen. And we've seen our shares with the prolific, explosive Wishbone and the Griffith teams in the 90s, 2000, the Andrain team at one state, the Vapple teams, you go up to that, but that might have been the most explosive offense ever. I mean, they scored 35 or more points in all but 2 games 1 year ago, so that should tell you how good they will. Matt DeSilver making the next step. He helped Andrain to an undefeated season as a sophomore. Wasn't great, the consistent player maybe as a sophomore. He took a huge step forward 1 year ago. He was over 1,500 yards rushing and passing. We're going to have, obviously, the 59ers are thinking big things here in 2013. And, of course, this year, the big change, 6A has arrived. They have taken 5A, split it in half. The top 32 now 6A. There's 6 teams locally in Northwest Indiana in the 6A level. There's only 3 5A teams. Can you believe that?
Yeah, it's almost like we don't even exist in 5A football.
At least not yet.
Well, it was kind of, that's kind of the way 3A was, too. We didn't have very many representatives in 3A over the last couple of years. But, yeah, it's going to be very interesting now with 6 classes. Now that it's a year later, we've got a few front-runner schools that I think are going to have some very high expectations. So I think without further ado, let's make our state predictions. We'll go 1A through 6A. Bob, what do you think about 1A?
Okay. By the way, the format, if you guys do not know, within 6 classes, it's no longer going to be 1, 2, 3, and 4. On Friday in the state finals weekend, they're going to do 1A, 3A, and 5A. And then on that Saturday, it's going to be 2, 4, and 6. So kind of a way to build the crowd up a couple of days in a row there. And judging from the last few years, the attendance has gone down quite precipitously at Lucas Oil. Hopefully we can see some new teams down there, get some new communities involved. And, well, let's be honest, in Class 1A, we know there's going to be 2 new teams involved because they're no longer at 1A, at least for the next couple of years.
You're right. Indianapolis Scena and Lafayette Central Catholic make that next step. They're now playing in 2A, so some teams knocking on the door like Linton Stockton the last couple of years. Sheridan's been close. The Pioneers had some great regular seasons, but of course they've kind of run into that buzzsaw of LCC. So, Bob, what's your 1A pick?
My 1A pick, the more things change, the more they stay the same. It's Back to the Future for Larry Bud Wright and the Sheridan Blackhawks. They've been knocking on the door the last couple of years, losing to Lafayette Central Catholic in the semi-state. I look for the Blackhawks to win, and out of the South, I'm going to pick a team that's been there in recent years, and, well, they won't be playing Lafayette Central Catholic this time, but they're going to be just as a tough opponent in Sheridan. I like Sheridan to win a 1A championship over the Fountain Central Mustangs.
Well, I agree with a lot of what you said. I think Sheridan up north is definitely the favorite. Of course, they're ranked number 1 in the preseason poll. I think Linton Stockton, even though they're going to lose some starters and they have a new head coach, I think Linton Stockton does take that next step, and I think they make the state finals. But I think Sheridan's run game is going to be a little too much for them, and I'm also going to pick the Blackhawks to win 1A.
All right.
Well, let's move up to 2A. Of course, there's a couple of new participants in LCC and Indianapolis-Scecina, which should make things a little more interesting. LCC winning the last 4 1A state championships. What can they do in 2A? They're certainly going to be a factor. Bob, what are your thoughts, your analysis of 2A?
I think 2A is going to be really, really interesting. In the end, I like 2 teams that were in the state finals a year ago. I like Central Catholic. They will be undaunted. They were a very young team last year. Don't forget, they got better as the year progressed, pitched a shutout in the championship game. I like them being in the north. Not really a lot of big teams up north. Maybe Tipton, who's in the same sectional. But the one team I think that's going to finally be able to do something that has never been done in a 1A or any level championship game, I like Ritter. Ritter, if you remember, fell behind a big margin last year against Lures, made a mad comeback, came up a little bit short. They returned a Parika kid at quarterback who is the real deal. In a track meet, I like Ritter over Lafayette Central Catholic.
Well, interesting choice. I know Lafayette Catholic has been in the last 4 1A state title games. They've won all 4 of them. I think this is the year that, I'm not going to say that they're going to fall off completely, but I think they're going to show that they're human a little bit this year. And a team I like that made a deep run, a regional run in the state tournament last year was Tipton. And I think Tipton is one of the best quarterbacks up north in 2A. I like them to get to the state finals. I think they're going to get past LCC. And I think they're going to beat Indianapolis Ritter in the state title game.
The big question is, can Tipton beat LCC at least once? If you're going to play, they're going to have to beat them to get out of the sectional. More than likely, they're in the same conference now, in the Hoosier Conference, and we all know that big X. It's hard to time at the high school level, hard to beat a team twice. But Tipton is very, very loaded. Don't forget, they've given Lure some games the last few years too.
They had them on the ropes last year too, and they very nearly beat them, and they would have been a team that would have faced Indiana in the semi-state. It's not that I don't think LCC is good. I think they just take a small step back, and I think Tipton, with what they have coming back, I think they have enough, just enough to take that next step and do it. Now we move up to 3A, and Bob, once again, you got a team in Bishop Lures that was in 2A last year. They now move up due to the tradition factor. So, and of course, now with Chittard and South Bend St. Joe up in 4A, 3A becomes a little more wide open.
And by the way, who the smallest school enrollment-wise in 3A is now?
Who?
The Andrean 59ers. They are the smallest school in 3A, so they move up. It's going to be a new look 3A, obviously. I think Andrean is going to have a very good year, but the one team that I'm really concerned with that returns a big bulk of their line from a semi-state run a year ago, they're in the same section with Andrean. That's the Mishawaka-Marion Knights. That is going to be a battle royale. I just have a feeling Reggie Glod and his team is going to be a factor. I like the Marion Knights to get to Indianapolis, but they are going to run into the team that lost the 3A championship a year ago. They return a good amount of experience. The Hamilton Heights Huskies, I like Hamilton Heights over Mishawaka-Marion.
Well, it's not a
Of all the years you've been trumpeting Mishawaka-Marion, I'm finally on the bandwagon.
Well, trust me, I know that when the tournament comes, that's the only team in that sectional that could play with Andrean. I was at the scrimmage last week when Andrean played Crown Point. I was really impressed. I think Andrean is going to be even better than they were last year. And I think with schools like South Bend St. Joe and Indianapolis Chittard moving up to 4A, I don't think that there is anybody at the level of those teams now in 3A. I think with a great quarterback like Matt DeSomer, Andrean can make that run. And I think this is going to be the year that they finally get over that hump and make the state finals. And I'm with you on Hamilton Heights. I think Hamilton Heights is going to be there as well. they came, oh so close last year, and I think Andrean defeats Hamilton Heights. I think we have a region state champion for the first time since 2005. I think Andrean will win the 3A state championship.
Wow.
That's the bold pick. That's my bold region pick right there.
I got my bold pick coming up
I'm all in
here,
with the 59ers.
All right, let's move to Class 4A. I got news for you. Bishop Chatard, even though they're up in the 4A and they're at the point to beat the likes of Roncalli, I still like Chatard to get things done. I think it's going to be a bit of a tougher road, obviously, with Roncalli. You still got Jasper or Wrightstouter and a Columbus East team, but I don't count out the Trojans. And here's my region bold pick. The Low Red Devils, George Fields, following in the tradition of Scotty Gray and Brandon Gruby. It's a loaded area up north in 4A with Arley, but for some reason, George Fields is going to help carry the Low Red Devils to Lucas Oil Stadium. I like the Red Devils to get there, and it will be the quickest state title game ever. I like Chatard over Lowell.
I never would have seen it coming. I mean, you told me, you kind of tipped me off to the pick a little bit earlier, and I was really, really surprised to hear that. Trust me, I love Lowell's program. I've been a fan for a while. I think there's a few question marks. The quarterback play, I'm not sure that their quarterback play is going to be good enough. Their defense loses a lot of starters. They lost some great linebackers from a year ago. So I think Lowell's going to have a little bit of, fixing up to do in certain areas, some patchwork to do. When it comes to 4A, a team that hasn't been talked about the last couple of years that's been kind of down, Bishop Dwenger, I think, is going to be back. I think they're going to, once again be a force to be reckoned with. We haven't heard much from them the last couple of years. I think they will kind of come out of nowhere, so to speak. You've got teams like Hobart, from and even East Chicago, another team that hasn't really been talked about much.
Nobody's talking about the Governors.
That's true too.
Nobody's talking about the Govs. This might be the most under the radar the Govs have been in quite a while.
I mean, I think there's a number of teams that could get there in the North. I'm not saying that Bishop Dwenger, they're not the team that did 3 or 4 years ago.
And we talked about this on MAB Weekly. The new Sectional 18, which used to be Sectional 10, that is a loaded section now. You got Hobart, you have KB, you have a New Prairie team. Look at the job Russ Radke did there last year. You got a Plymouth team where, as you know and I know, over the years, that's where Northwest Indiana teams go to die in October. And then you got South Bend St. Joe who moves up from 3A to 4A. You know how good the Indians program is up.
That's true.
South Bend Riley got a transfer, the Daquan Cook, the former quarterback from Washington. He's now playing for Riley. Clay's always been a tough. I mean, that is a meat grinder of a sectional.
Oh, trust me. I mean, I don't think there's any one clear-cut favorite, but I'm going to say Bishop Dwenger from the North makes the state finals, and I'm going to go with that powerhouse school Roncalli. I know you're talking about Chatard, and you might be right. I mean, I think it's going to come down to that. If Chatard beats them, then I'm with you. I think Chatard.
You're just glad I'm not picking Leo.
Yeah. I was surprised, and you kind of had me a little bit on that a couple of years ago, but yeah, I'm going to say Roncalli gets there, not having to worry about Cathedral anymore. I think Roncalli gets to the state finals, and they beat Bishop Dwenger to win the 4A state championship. And now it's time to move up to 5A, and I know we kind of talked about this earlier on the show. This might be the one slam dunk out of all 6 classes.
We all like to go out on that limb beforehand. Okay, who's going to get the Lucas Oil Stadium? I think this is the preseason picks, the matchup. This is the biggest slam dunk. Cathedral, Snyder, both teams are loaded. I like the Irish to take care of business. This would be 4 in a row in 5 out of 6 years for the Fighting Irish. Snyder got there a year ago, lost to Lawrence Central, and I think they have an opportunity to get there. But the luck of the Irish will find their way again in Lucas Oil, and I like Cathedral to win it all in 5A.
I don't have much more to add to that. I completely agree with you 100%. I think this is, and maybe we turn out to be fools in the end, but
barring injuries, but I think this is the easiest one to pick.
I think so. I'm with you. Cathedral over Snyder for a 5A championship, and now the game has changed. We have a new class, as you had mentioned before. The old 5A was split up in half. Top 32 teams. 6A is now a reality. Bob, what's your take? I mean, we're talking 4-team sectionals here.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting considering for the most part, the teams that are going to be playing for the 5A and 6A, they have a week less term. They're going to have 2 weeks to prepare for a state championship game, which is going to be something to really keep an eye on how play is going to be when you get to those 5A and 6A games come Thanksgiving weekend. Locally, I think Sectional 1 has the capability of being very interesting. You know, when they first announced the assignments, they kind of split the Northwest Indiana teams. They put Crown Point, Lake Central, and Maryville together with Lafayette Jeff. It's like, Lafayette Jeff? But when you look at it geography-wise, it makes a lot of sense. It's just a straight shot up 65 or 52 for Lafayette Jeff to come up. And then you put Portage, Valpo, and Chesterton together with Penn. Best player in the sectional could be Galen Robinson from Lake Central. He's been a beast offensively. He's going to be going to Purdue. He's committed there. The alma mater of his father, Glenn Robinson. Maryville, that big offense, they lost everybody. They got good size, good experience back on defense. Ryan Neal is a playmaker in the secondary. And Sean Struck might be the best sophomore in Indiana. And that's not saying that's not something I'm showing, to be honest with you. Crown Point, 10 defensive starters back. I know there's questions about Jake Jadis and how is he health-wise. I guess he did not perform in the scrimmage this past weekend, but from what we hear, the word on the street is that he's probably going to be available to be played here. So he's the top returning passing yardage-wise quarterback back in Northwest Indiana, at least at the big school level. Porter County's going to be interesting. Portage has a young man back at quarterback. It's going to be pretty good. Pyramid. Valpo's got Hittinger back, but they got to replace their 2 big running backs, Andrew Kittredge and Steven Sims. Chesterton losing a multitude of starters.
They're replacing everyone, including the kitchen sink.
And the head coach, Mark Peterson, though. They do have a capable quarterback taking over. Cole Teal's got experience underneath the belt. I would have to say locally, it's going to be interesting. I like this Crown Point team a lot. Defensively, they're going to be very, very strong. I think another year with Steve Stranger's system, I think this Crown Point team has a capability of getting to the semi-state. Can they get to the state finals? As much as I would like to say, I'm going to say no. There's a certain team in Hamilton County, blue and gold. I think you know where I'm going.
Oh, I do.
The Carmel Greyhounds, they're loaded for bear. I like Carmel to come out of the north. And out of the south, I'm going to pick a senior-laden Pike Red Devil ball club to get there. And I like Carmel over Pike and an all-metropolitan 6A championship.
Well, it's hard to agree with a lot, or it's hard to disagree with a lot of what you said. I think Crown Point has the potential to be the best team in this area. Certainly, we don't know for sure what's going on with their quarterback situation, but assuming that they're healthy, I think Crown Point is the best chance that we have in 6A to get to the state finals. But the problem now, as it has been in the past, we've been able to get teams at that semi-state level, but no one has been able to knock off Carmel. Maryville's been there, LaPorte's been there. Getting over that hump of beating a team like Carmel, that's the big question mark. And I'm with you. I think Carmel has a much easier road, not having to face all those metropolitan teams in the South to get to state.
But they still got a tough road. Obviously, Fishers and Hamilton Southeast.
Their sectional is no easy task at all. You're right about that. I think going beyond that sectional level, the competition is just not as good as what they face week in, week out in that Metropolitan Conference. And not to mention, the new additions that they have are going to
Pike and Lawrence Central.
That's going to make that conference. I mean,
it's like, oh my God!
It's like the SEC in college football or something. That's just.
Did you see the report? I think it was Yahoo voted the Indianapolis area is the 3rd best area for high school football in the country as far as talent, behind I think Southern California and somewhere in Texas. But the Indianapolis area is number 3 in the country.
I'll tell you what, coming from our perspective up north here, there's no question. Every time we talk about trying to get to the state finals or winning a state championship, well, you got to beat Carmel or Warren Central or now Lawrence Central. It's always one of these Indianapolis area schools that you got to go through to win a state championship.
I could be wrong, but I think the Carmel Pike regular season game is actually going to be televised on one of the ESPN channels this year.
Wow.
I think so.
Well, as far as my pick is concerned, I am going to pick Carmel to win a state championship. And I'm going to go out on a limb. I'm going to say it's Warren Central that makes the state finals.
New coach, huh? Jason West moving over, huh?
Yeah, moves from Warren Central to Warren Central. So we'll see if he can have that same success he had last year with the Bears. So I'm going to say Crum over Warren Central. That's kind of a redundant, redundant pick as far as that's concerned. But yeah, those are our picks, 1A through 6A. What kind of curious, if you guys have any comments or anything you want to add to that, feel free to go ahead. But now let's go on to the portion of our show where we make our picks, and we'll start going down.
Are you going to have a tote board this year?
A what?
A tote board.
A tote board.
Yeah, a tote board is keep track of how.
Yeah. You know what? We will keep track. And we're each going to pick a lock game of the week, and the rule is at least the regular season. You got to pick a new team every week.
You forgot your cheese head, though.
I did forget the cheese head at home. Apologize for that.
I'm going to have to use one of these props here for mine.
The cheese will be here next week. I can promise you that.
Maybe you can use that pumpkin over there.
I don't think so.
No,
you can't replace the cheese. I'm sorry.
It's be very uncomfortable on your head.
Yeah, probably. Yeah. Let's just get started with going down the list. We'll have a big three, and of course we'll have our locks of the week. First game, this is kind of the Holy War, Andrean at Bishop Knoll. Bob, I don't think this is going to be much of a contest.
No, Bishop Knoll's supposed to be improved this year. A lot of people think Mike Juszyk's ball club going to have a winning season. It's been a while since they've been above 500 there on the border of Hammond and East Chicago. But Andrean, practically 2 weeks to get ready for Maryville. I like the Niners here.
I agree with you 100%. This is a warm-up for the 59ers. They win this one big. Chesterton, the new-look Trojans, new head coach on the road. They play the 3A state runner-ups. They're now in 4A, South Bend St. Joe. They lost this game 2 years ago, if you remember. It was a very close contest, and St. Joe was actually able to pull off, I think, a 2-point victory.
I think they kicked a field goal at the end of the game. And then Chesterton got them last year.
Yes, they did.
And now they get to go back to South Bend. I think it's going to be a tough debut for Mark Peterson. I'm a big Mark Peterson fan. Class guy, solid coach. I think it's going to take a while, for the Trojans to find themselves. No, I think with the type of offense Chesterton runs, with Mark Peterson being an option guy, I think it's a great fit for that program. It's going to take a little bit of time, for the Trojans to find themselves here opening night. Despite Cole Teal brings experience to the quarterback spot, I like the St. Joe Ball Club here in this one.
Well, I'm going to have to agree with you completely on that. I think with having to replace so many key players from last year's ball club, I think Chesterton's going to have a rough start, at least a slow start the first few weeks. I like St. Joe to win this game as well. Here's kind of a new program, Elkhart Christian. They start their football program. They're now at River Forest first week. Bob, I think this is going to be a pretty comfortable victory for the Ingots.
I could tell you a thing about Elkhart Christian.
Neither could I.
So in that case, I'm going to go Ingots. Go Molten Masses of Metal. Go River Forest.
Molten Masses of Metal.
That's what an ingot is.
Gary Roosevelt. Their football program's been up in the air the last few years. They have a new coach. They're on the road, Michigan City, first week of the season. Of course, Mike Karpinski in his second year as the head coach of the Wolves. Bob, I think this is going to be a slam dunk victory for Michigan City.
I think so too. It's going to be really interesting. Michigan City is one of the 3 remaining 5A teams in Northwest Indiana. We keep hearing about, helps out of the way. We all know about the tradition the Pop Warner programs had there in Michigan City. Can it start to pay dividends now? I think this is, you look at the Michigan City Ball Club, they've struggled for wins in the donut. I think it's been a couple years since they've won a DAC game. I think you have to go back to when Craig Buzia was there 4 years ago. I'm going to go out on a limb. I'm going to say Michigan City wins a DAC game or 2 this year.
Well, you might be right about that. I know they got a lot of young talent. They have another Washington playing quarterback, so Michigan City, certainly I think has enough talent to maybe, eventually become a factor. And you might be right; they might win a game or 2. But yeah, they're definitely going to, slam dunk Roosevelt and win that game.
They scored some points last year. Don't forget.
Yeah. This is going to be a very, very interesting matchup. Gary Westside at the Brickyard taking on Hobart. We know Hobart kind of, began their rise back to the top last year. Westside has some exciting skill players. I know they have a kid that is committed to go to Ohio State. So, I mean, that's nothing to sneeze at. This is going to be a very intriguing game of contrasting styles.
I think Westside's a team a lot of people don't really know a lot about, but you hear some of the buzz. A lot of people think very highly of Jason Johnson's ball club. He's going to, there's their team in the new sectional 17 in Class 4A, what used to be 9. Everybody's talking East Chicago. Everybody's talking Morton. Lowell coming back into that sectional. But the one team nobody's really talking about in that sectional is that Westside Ball Club. They're going to put some points on the board this year. They might put some points on the board on Friday, but the Brickies, they do have Barris back at quarterback. They're going to have to find some running backs. Dre Devereaux might be the guy there. He's just a great playmaker all the way around. Good experience back on defense. One big interesting thing, who's going to be doing the kicking chores now for Hobart? With Aaron Del Grosso. Never underestimate how big of a factor that is, especially in the last couple of years when you had a kid who could consistently from 40, 45 yards drill between the uprights. Knowing Hobart and living in Hobart, I have a feeling they're going to be just okay in the kicking game. But it's going to be an interesting game, I think. I look for Hobart to pull away with a big second half. They'll win this one comfortably.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to have to worry about their kicking situation, at least this week. I think you're right. I think Westside's going to probably get off a few big plays, but over the course of the game, Hobart is solid. They're solid on both sides of the ball, and they're definitely good inside the trenches. And that's where I think this game is going to be won, with Hobart being able to run the football, control the clock, and keep that high-powered West Side offense off the field.
Just living in Hobart, I just love seeing the Bricky support sides in all the businesses in downtown Hobart.
Well, I'll tell you what. I think Turley's the right guy. I think he knows the history. He's been a part of the tradition. He brought back the old offense that they kind of this wing bone offense that they traditionally ran during all their glory years. So I think he's the right guy, and he definitely has the program heading in the right direction. I look for Hobart to come out and be very impressive. I think they're going to win by probably about 3 touchdowns. I like Hobart big in this one. And here's another exciting game. This is your game on MAB. Hammond at East Chicago.
I'm doing this in case you put the graphic here.
Yeah. I'm going to put the graphic. Of course I'm going to do that. Bob, I know you're excited. You get to see one of the best playmakers in all of Northwest Indiana. All the talk about Martavius Carter and his commitment to Northern Illinois.
He's legit. He is legit. He's probably the best player to come out of East Chicago. That's because they've had a few good players over the years, but probably
Willie Frazier.
Better than Keon Frazier. I'm going back to the Rolls-Royce days, the Martel France days. You weren't even walking around P-Town yet, mister. He is that good. And this is a rivalry game. I mean, East Chicago and Hammond, the old saying, there's no love lost between these schools. And Hammond High is very solid. Eric Shriver's done a great job since taking over the program. His son, Eric Jr., attended the Manning passing camp over the summer too, which wouldn't think that, but very solid athlete, running that wishbone. This is going to be, I think, a high-scoring game, but I just think the Cardinals have too many weapons here. Burnett, Carter, and others. This might be like a 49-35 type game. I'm looking forward to it Friday over at Pete Rosinski Field.
Well, 2 years ago, Hammond kind of came out of nowhere. They had a great season, and they blew out East Chicago the first week. And then last year, East Chicago returned the favor, and they poured it on them. So that's going to kind of make things a little more interesting. But I think East Chicago took a large step forward last year. Of course, they still have that hump of Morton to get over, and we'll see if they can do that this year. But I think East Chicago is going to be an improved ball club. Stacey Adams has done a great job with that program.
This team might be 8-1 going into the sectional.
They very, very well could be.
They have a very good shot.
I think they're going to win this game big. I don't think Hammond's going to have any answers for that high-powered offense, and I think East Chicago is going to be putting up at least 40 points in this
one. Don't forget, East Chicago's got playmakers on the defensive side of the ball too.
Sure, yeah. They do. I try to watch as many teams as I can. I try to study footage as much as I can. This offense is incredible. I look for East Chicago to pretty much score at will in this ball game, and they're going to win. Gabbett taking on Calumet, Bob, and two programs that have kind of been down in the dumps lately.
Could be mistaken. I believe Calumet upset Gabbett last year in the first round after going winless in the regular season. I think Calumet beat Gabbett in the first round of the sectional last year. You look at it, Rob Robinson is a very solid coach. Did a pretty good job at Hammond High for reasons. He was let go. He's now trying to build up that Gabbett program there. And, of course, you got Ivan Zimmer, the veteran there at Calumet.
He's been coaching there forever.
He's got a lot of kids coming back, too, as well. Should be an interesting game. I'm going to go with the Gladiators here in this one.
Well, I know this is, we're supposed to be disagreeing, and I'm sure it's going to happen at some point. But I'm going to have to agree with you again. I think Gabbett's going to have just a little bit too much. I think Gabbett's just in a little bit better spot as a program right now. Calumet's been really struggling as of late. I like Gabbett to win this one on the road. Here's another matchup, Bob. I know you. This is probably one of your favorite games to do. You've done many calls on these two teams playing one another. Morton at the Boneyard taking on Griffith. You sure have had your share of chances to call this particular matchup, and they've had a lot of big sectional games. I'm not sure that the game this year, is really has the same luster that it's had in the past.
Well, I think a lot of people were disappointed last year. Griffith had high expectations, new coach, great playmaker in Austin Brown, but the Panthers just probably had their worst year for injuries they've had in a long time. Lost to Highland in the first round of the sectional. I hear the reports that they got upwards of 20-plus seniors on this year's team. The green kid, the move-in, who finally got eligible at the end of last season, is going to be expected to play the full year. He's got speed to burn. And then you got the Morton Governors, who, when you look at the sectional, until proven otherwise, they are still the team to be in the sectional. I think they're moving one of their receivers to quarterback this year. And, of course, Rory Richards does a great job there in the Hessville section of Hammond. I think at this one, to begin the last season of grass at the Boneyard, I like the Governors to win this one by a comfortable margin. I'm going to say about maybe like a 35-20 type ball game.
Yeah, I keep hearing all these things about Justin Green. That he's how impressive he is. I've seen some of his old highlights from Las Vegas, things that he's done. I have no doubts that he's going to be a great player for this team. But my big question mark is, do they have anybody else that can go along for the ride with them, that can step up and make this offense more potent?
It's going to be interesting to see Kyle Bukama going to be the man at quarterback for Jim Pickett's ball club. It's going to be really interesting.
He played a little bit last year, so he did get some experience. I think that's going to help him. I did see some Morton highlights from their scrimmage against Lake Central, and they look pretty good. They're off, and they have some studs. They have another Dickey playing wide receiver. This kid is tall. He's a big target. He's almost like a Terrell Owens or like a Mike Williams type receiver. He was making some plays, and they have just a plethora of skill athletes. I think Morton is going to have their way with Griffith's defense. I think this is going to be similar to East Chicago playing Hammond. I think Morton's going to put up some big numbers, and I like them to win this game big. Next game, I know a couple years ago when we did this show, we talked about we included North Judson and Rensselaer in our weekly picks, and North Judson, as we all know now, new coach at the helm, Kirk Kennedy, comes back up to the region from Bloomington. We all know about the success he had at Lowell. Now he takes over a Blue Jay program. They've been kind of average the last couple of years, but I tell you what, they have a pretty good. They have some pretty good talent coming back, because I watched them.
They were in the sectional final a year ago.
I saw them play, and I was there at that sectional championship. They have some talent, and I think the players that they have can mold well to this
when
system.
The Blue Jays are rolling, they're one of the most intimidating places for an opposing team in Indiana is Liberty Field. I mean, you want to talk about crazy fans. You were there. They rally behind their Blue Jays. Great tradition, 3 state final trips in the 80s. Solid tradition, though a little bit kind of had their struggles the last few years. Have been up and down. But Kirk Kennedy kind of coming back. I think he knows how to relate to these.
His style.
I guess he's going to be running a little bit of wishbone, because there's no North Judson's a wishbone team. And they're taking on, you're saying, John Glenn team who has a new coach, Bill Sharp's kid. The longtime Gymtown coach, his son is taking over the Glen program. So that's kind of an interesting. Dave Sharp is the new coach there at Glen. It's going to be interesting. Somebody's going to get their first win at their new school. I'm going to go with the Blue Jays.
Well, once again, I'm going to have to agree with you. Last year, this matchup, North Judson came out of the gate firing, and they scored over 40 points on Glen in the first week. I see them having their way again. I think it's going to be a good start for Coach Kennedy at North Judson. I like for the Blue Jays to start their season 1-0, and they're going to beat John Glenn. Here's another rivalry game, sort of, Bob. Lake Central taking on Munster.
Well, going back to the old Lake Suburban days.
Well,
Munster, I think, is going to be up there with another team we're going to talk about shortly. But you look at maybe the 2 to 3 teams most improved in Northwest Indiana. I think the Mustangs are definitely in that team picture. Had a tough go last year.
2-8 last
2-8,
year.
but now in the new revamped 5A. You look at the sectional; they're one of only 2 5-team sectionals in the new 5A.
They're going to be competitive.
They're one of them. Can they compete with Michigan City? Can they compete with LaPorte? Can they compete with a Mishawaka team that lost everybody from the state final? South Bend Adams? I think they're in the mix to win that sectional.
I think you're absolutely right. They're going to be an improved ball club, and of course, Lake Central had an outstanding season last year. I think they kind of fell short of their expectations a little bit. They do lose
How
David
things
Yancey.
would have changed if David Yancey didn't get hurt, huh?
Yeah, we could have been talking about them playing in the state finals. It could have been very possible. But I still think Lake Central is going to be a solid ball club. Of course, they have what many people believe to be is the best overall player in Northwest Indiana, Galen Robinson. So Lake Central is still going to be in that conversation of top-tier teams in Northwest Indiana. I just think they're going to have too much for Munster. I think Munster will take a step in the right direction, but I don't think they have enough to beat Lake Central.
I think Lake Central's going to win this game. This game, I think, might be a little bit closer than you think. I think Munster defensively, they've always been rock solid defensively. I just think, Lake Central's got a little bit of experience back out. Olin back at quarterback's a big plus. We'll see other playmakers. I see this being, for some reason, like a 21-7 type game.
Yeah, I think I might agree with that statement. I think Lake Central's defense is going to be awesome. I think their offense, when you lose a playmaker like Yancey, I think their offense is going to take a little bit of a step back. You're not going to have quite as much explosiveness with that offense, but I think they'll be efficient. So I think your score sounds pretty good to me. I like Lake Central to win. Next game, Lake Station traveling to Highland. Bob, I'll tell you what. I was on YouTube last night. I was watching part of the game when Highland played Carmel for.
It's on YouTube.
A trip to the state championship.
I remember that game very well. It was cold, very cold.
I mean, we're talking.
I was 13 years old.
This was a long time ago, Bob.
Yes,
but things have changed in the Highland program since then.
Well, they had a nice finish the last year.
They did. They struggled during the regular season, but they did make a run to the sectional final.
And got a new era in Lake Station with a new head coach, Rich Lunsford, taking over the reins. Mike Kemp stepping down after last season, his second tour of duty ending there with the Fighting Eagles.
So I think a big question is, can Highland make that next step? I think some people think that it was kind of tainted because Griffith had so many starters out. But can Highland, maybe make that next step up? It's going to be a tough road. They're in a really tough sectional. And the way I see it right now, I think they're kind of at the bottom of the conference looking up at everybody else. But I think for this week, I think they're going to enjoy some success, Bob. And I think
they shut them out last year, if I recall. I think it was like a 25-0 game last year. The Trojans won, was their only win in the regular season. I see them kind of winning by a shutout again this time around. I look for the Trojans to open with a W in Zip Cycling.
Absolutely. Here's another game that I think is going to be very, very intriguing. New Prairie on the road at LaPorte. What a rivalry this is.
We've done a few of those games over the year. That's some good stuff over there in Kiwanis. I believe they got the field turf now over there in LaPorte, I think.
Well, I know if they don't have it, they're going to get it.
Yeah.
So last season, New Prairie kind of came out on a mission. They just destroyed LaPorte. I think it was like 38-14, something like that. They just destroyed LaPorte first week of the season. They had a great run To be honest with you, Bob, I think they were 8-1 in the regular season. I think the only loss was to Jimtown.
And then they lost to Sop in Washington in the
Right.
sectional.
So I mean, in Russ Rackey's first year, I mean, he completely changed the culture at New Prairie.
This has always been an intriguing matchup. Two schools that are, one the big school, one the small. No, New Prairie is up to a 4A school now, so they're not really a small potato school anymore.
Yeah.
This is going to be an interesting game. Rivalry game, one of those where you can throw out the records if we had records, but since it's opening night, we don't have any records to throw out. I think the LaPorte Slicers are going to be the most improved team in Northwest Indiana. They've kind of taken their lumps the last couple of years. They're young, but they got very talented, and they're building. I think 2014 is the year they're really pointing for, but 2013, I think they're going to be a team of bet on the rise, and I'm going to go out on a limb and pick an upset here. I'm going to take the Slicers to upset New Prairie here on Friday night.
Well, it's an interesting pick, and
I think it's our first disagreement.
yes, it's going to be our first disagreement.
All right.
Finally going to, and I tell you what, I think this is going to be a barn burner of a game. I don't think it's going to be a blowout. I think either way, I'm looking at like a touchdown game. Either way, I think this is going to be very competitive, and it's going to be a lot of fun to watch. I think this is going to be a well-attended game.
Usually
no
is.
question about it. I know New Prairie loses a lot of starters. They were a senior-loaded team last year. But I think that the Cougars are going to have just enough. I think they're going to be able to control the clock just enough with their offense. I'm going to pick New Prairie to win this game by a touchdown, maybe like a 28-21 kind of game. I'll take the Cougars, and that's our first disagreement.
First of many?
Well, we'll see. We've still got a few games to go. Penn on the road at Viking Field, taking on Valparaiso.
Boy, if you're a Penn fan, what a disappointing end to 2012, huh?
Yeah.
Losing to Carroll in the sectional semifinal.
Carroll Chargers, right?
Yep, who ended up going to the regional, and then
They got smoked.
by Maryville. Yes. Penn's the 800-pound gorilla in Michiana, no doubt about it. A lot of people think this is a Valparaiso team. Okay, they lose Andrew Kittredge. Yeah, they lose Steven Sims. They got young man back, David Hiddeker back at quarterback.
Yeah.
They had some issues defensively a year ago. I know I did a game where Maryville put up 600 yards of offense and a half, but another year under the belt for Dave Coyne. It's going to be one of those teams. Maybe they're going to be a better team when we get to the middle part, second half of the season. I just look at it right now. I think Penn's going to win this game. I think a low-scoring game for some reason. I see like a 14-3, 17-3 type of game coming out of Viking Field Friday night with Penn on top.
Well, I definitely see Penn winning this ball game. I just, with Valpo being down, this game loses a lot of its luster. This used to be a big-time game, big-time Week 1 game. I don't think Penn is, as good as the team that went to state a couple years ago. But I do think they are clearly the best team in this new sectional. I think
these are sectional opponents too.
Yes, they are. So that makes this matchup more meaningful for Penn because they know that there's a chance they could face Valpo again down the road. Just like in Week 2, they're going to play Portage, another team in their sectional. So these matchups, these games have value, for both ball clubs because now there's a good chance with only a 4-team sectional you're going to see this team again. But at any rate, I think Penn comes in here and takes care of business. I think Valpo is going to get off to a slow start, and we'll see if they can, improve as the season goes along. But I do like Penn to win this one comfortably. Now we move on to another matchup between a Michiana Power and another Doolan School, Portage, taking on Mishawaka. This is their, the third meeting the last 3 years. This series has gone on. Last year was a wild game, and Mishawaka scored, I think, about 60 points.
Yeah.
Just Sam Schrader just shredded the Portage defense. But now Portage on the road at Steel Stadium. Mishawaka, they lose pretty much everybody. They lose, most importantly, their starting quarterback.
And Mr. Schrader is gone, and that is a loud roar you hear for the rest of the Northern Indiana Conference.
Yeah, and I think that's definitely going to be a good thing for Portage because they just had no success trying to stop him last year.
I think it's interesting. Bart Curtis is a great coach, a great option coach, but he's going to have his hands full trying to plug new players in. I think Mishawaka lost something like 20 starters off a team that was in the finals a year ago. Portage has a great quarterback coming back. Name escapes me off the top of my head.
Gage Pyramid.
Gage Pyramid, thank you very much. Portage put up some points last year. I'm going to go on a limb. I like Portage on the road to take care of a very inexperienced Mishawaka club.
I'll tell you what, Bob, and you know, you can challenge me on this if you want. I don't think any team in this area has a tougher first half of the season schedule than Portage.
Oh, I know.
At Mishawaka, at Penn, at Lake Central, at Maryville, and then home against Crown Point. The first fight, I mean, that schedule is brutal, okay? And even though Mishawaka lost a lot of players, you know how difficult it is to go into that stadium.
Especially when you play that offense, Mishawaka, that no huddle flex bone, where you probably don't see it at all the rest of the season. Maybe the closest team that you're going to see that runs the offense at Mishawaka is going to be Chesterton later on in the season. But other than, you know, they obviously seen it the last couple of years, so that's how they're going to have a new quarterback. He's not going to be Sam Schrader. I'm going to tell you that right now.
Right.
I think Wally McCormick's probably happy. Hey, we don't have to see him anymore. I just think with new faces, people not used to, you know, starting for their, you know, it's going to help. They got all those extra pass practices when you make that dome run. But I just think Portage I'm just going to go out and win it. I like Portage to win on the road here Friday night.
I'll tell you what. I mean, I like what Wally's done so far. I know they only won 3 games last year, but
they were competitive in most of them.
Yeah, I feel like they're heading in the right direction. He did take the arrows off the helmets. He's got the flying P back on there.
Oh, I love the flying P.
I'm really excited about that. So I mean, he cares about tradition, and that says something right there. It says something that he wants to go back to what made Portage football great to begin with. This game, I think, is a real toss-up, and I think Portage can win this game. I honestly think they have a real legitimate chance to win, but I think they have a few things going against them. Certainly on the road, that's a tough place to play. They struggle, and they have a history of struggling against these types of offenses, these flex-bone option offenses. They really struggle stopping this form of an attack. It's a hard offense to prepare for. I'm going to say Mishawaka, even though they have a bunch of new starters, I think they're going to come in and win a very close one. I think they're going to beat Portage in a very close game. So we're going to disagree once again on that pick. I'm going to take Mishawaka to win a close one over Portage. Here's a new matchup that I don't know when the last time these two teams played, Bob, but I don't know if South Bend Clay has ever played Maryville. Have they played in football?
I have no idea.
Well, Maryville's no longer playing Warren Central, which is probably good news for them. They now host South Bend Clay, a team that really struggled last season, Bob. But of course, Maryville losing a lot of starters offensively, they got a completely kind of a
Jake Popovich gone, Aaron Dye gone, Dion Collins. Brian Isbell back in the backfield is going to be a positive. He got Collins was out with the injury situation, got a lot of PT. He was kind of their goal line guy too. If you remember the end of the regular season, defensively, they got some bodies back. Ryan Neal is about as dynamic a playmaker in the secondary as anybody in Northwest Indiana. Sean Streck might be the best sophomore in the state of Indiana on the football field. He's that good, great wrestler, great defensive lineman. He started last year as a freshman. I think Maryville early on, they're not going to be scoring points in bunches like they did a year ago. I think defensively, though, they might be better this year than they were last year. No, they had their moments last year where they looked great, and then there were other moments where they looked lost. I mean, they gave up some wild point totals last year. I think this year they're going to be seeing maybe a lot more 21-14, 28-21 games. I think offensively they're going to struggle the first couple of weeks, but I think they'll get enough Friday night to take care of the Colonials.
Well, I think this is a good game to start. You know, when you have a brand new starting quarterback and a lot of new offensive starters, to be able to begin your season against a team like South Bend Clay, I think this is a game that they can use as kind of a springboard. You know, having to open up against Warren Central every year and losing by 40 or 50 points is not going to give your team very much confidence. So I think this is a good thing for Maryville that they have Clay on the schedule, at least right now, because they're not that much of a veteran team offensively. They got a lot of new starters. I think they're going to take care of business, but not. I think it's gonna be a little bit ugly. I don't think they're gonna score a ton of points, but I think they're gonna win maybe like a 28-21 type of game. I think they're gonna take care of South Bend Clay and they'll win this week because they got a tough one week 2 when they play Andrean. So they definitely want to make sure they're on the top of their game for that one. Now we move on to another Greater South Shore Conference team. My boys, South Central.
If Jeff Karras is watching this, he is going to love you to death.
He probably will.
Hello out there, Jeff. You're watching. I know he'll see this on my Facebook.
I hope he'll watch it.
Region Sportsdesk on Facebook, by the way.
Yeah, well, we're friends. We're friends. South Central on the road, taking on the Lancers of LaVille. Bob.
Dan Klimczak did a nice job last year at South Central.
Yeah.
He really did. I think 6 games. Off the
winning
bench, lost to
season.
Whiting in the first round. Of course, that's his alma mater, so he's quite happy to represent the royal blue and red there, the Satellites, as they are in orbit over La Paz. That's at LaVille, right?
Yes.
You know why it's LaVille? It's La Paz of Lakeville. That's why. Did you know that?
No, I did not.
Have you ever been to LaVille?
Yes, I have.
Okay.
Been to a lot of Bi-County games there.
I can imagine. I don't know much about LaVille, so I'm going South Central.
Yeah, no, LaVille's not very good. LaVille's very much down in the dumps. South Central's going to win this one.
I think LaVille might have a new coach, maybe? I'm not sure.
I couldn't tell you. I know they're not very good, and South Central's going to wipe the floor with them.
I would have gone after. Oh, boy.
Oh, yeah.
I'm going to have to wear my Christian Okoye jersey next week.
And now, your favorite game, Bob, I know you've enjoyed calling this game many times. Clark taking on Whiting. This might be
turf. The new turf at Ray Galloway. By the way, this is a Saturday night game, I believe.
Yes, it is.
Yes, it is.
And
folks at Whiting are very proud of the new field there.
I don't doubt it. I've seen pictures.
And they're going to light up the scoreboard on Saturday night.
You're probably right about that too. This is a team that went undefeated in the regular season last year, and fell to West Central in the sectional. This is a team that's going to have a lot of expectations once again, Bob. And they're looking to take that next step.
I think they're going to be in the mix. Obviously, when you look at the Greater South Shore, I think it's them and Wheeler, and then everybody else. Yep. No offense to the likes of South Central and North Newton and whatnot, but Whiting with AJ Velazback, Ethan Young, they've always been a fun team to watch offensively. I think Clark's a little bit undermanned here in this one. Jay Novak trying to build that program there in the Robertsdale section of Hammond, but Whiting's going to be showing off, I think, the new field, and they are going to put on a show offensively on Saturday night.
Yep, I agree 100%. Whiting big over Clark. And this is a game I forgot to write down on the list, and thank goodness I kind of remembered. The Civil War. North Newton, South Newton.
I think North Newton's got a new coach.
They do?
I believe so. I think I saw that in this book, by the way. Thanks to Paul Connery and all the guys over at Regional Radio Sports and the Indiana Football Digest. I want to look up here and see where North Newton is at here. I believe they're 2A. Aaron Sauter is the new head coach. He used to be a head coach down around in the Indianapolis area. He's the new head coach in Morocco.
Well, that's interesting. And now, the Civil War, you know how big of a deal this game is. These are the only 2 teams in Newton County.
North Newton's had a nice couple of years, too. You think about it. They've been around the 500 mark after a bit of a struggle a few years before that.
They were in the sectional final 2 years ago.
Yeah, and they lost to Wheeler. South Newton always been a pretty solid program in that Midwest Conference. They're a spread team. Chris Bell loves to fling it all over the place. I don't know what the way to go. What do you think here in this one? I'm going to have to flip a coin here.
Uh-oh.
I might make embarrassment of my coin flipping school.
Heads North Newton? Tails?
Where did it go? It's tails. We're going South Newton. Well, at least I am.
Rebel yell, huh?
You're too young to remember Billy Idol.
Okay, maybe I am, but I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna have to go North Newton. I'm sorry, Spartans all the way. Hopefully I get that one right because I'm gonna need all the points I can get. Okay, now our final game before we get to the big 3. Indianapolis Marshall making that long trip from Indy up to Bowman. Take on the Eagles.
A relatively new football program. Bowman's got a new football coach.
Yep. Bowman.
Should I flip a coin again?
I don't think that's needed.
No, I'm going to go Bowman.
Bowman won this game by about 3 touchdowns last year. They won quite handily, and I don't think anything changes this time around either. I'm taking Bowman too.
Me too.
All right, time for the big 3. All right, our first matchup. And Bob, you're going to be real happy to see this one. Boone Grove taking on Wheeler. We all know what happened last year.
Wheeler is looking for payback with a capital P.
I think you're right about that.
Sam Bova, he's pretty good.
Boone Grove kind of.
I'm not sorry. Is it Sam or Tyler?
No, it's Sam Bova. I believe.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sam.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
And Boone Grove is another team, another great story from last year. They came out of nowhere, a second-year football program, and they snuck up on a few teams, including North Judson.
So I had a chance to see Boone Grove last year. It was the game Cody Pointer went down against East Chicago. It was their first loss of the season. They really made strides for being a second-year varsity program. They won a playoff game last year. But Wheeler has been waiting for another crack at Boone since last year. And I see payback on the horizon. Sorry, Coach Tinkle and the rest of the Wolves. And Frank, if you're out there, one of my big compadres, Frank Keel from Regional Radio, who's a Boone Grove alum, loves to tout his Wolves.
He's not going to like you right now.
No, he's not. I am going to go say Wheeler gets some payback come Friday night. I see Wheeler winning by about 3 touchdowns.
Is it a lock?
It's not my power play pick of the day. But what about you?
Well,
can you superimpose your cheese head?
I
Here, put this on top of your head.
Yeah, I've got... This North-South shirt says it all. It represents a cheese head. I'm making it a lock. Wheeler is going to win this game big. Boone Grove loses too many starters. Wheeler has not forgotten about this game. Kind of like what happened with Andrean when they played Wheeler last year. Wheeler did not forget about this game from last year. Wheeler's going to win this game big. Bearcats all the way. Second game, this is another huge rivalry. You talk about the Civil War. These are the only 2 schools in Jasper County, and they're going to do battle. Rensselaer at home, taking on Kankakee Valley, the new revamped KV Cougar
This was the coming out party for KB a year ago, if you remember.
Yeah.
And, of course, Rensselaer gave Andrea a game in the sectional a year ago.
They-
Do you
yes,
remember?
they
Losing
did.
by a touchdown.
And that game was in doubt. I mean, in the fourth quarter.
Yes, it was. It was a tie game.
Yeah. So,
Chris Meeks Ball Club, he don't mess around down there. He does a great job with that bomber program.
I'll tell you what, they play in a really tough Hoosier conference. I think that conference really gets them ready because they got to play teams like Tipton and West Lafayette and LCC, Benton Central. They got to play some big-time programs, and it gets them ready for that 2A sectional. KB came out, and they just lit up the scoreboard last year. It was actually a scoring fest on both sides, but KB, I think, won that game by about 10. So that now with KB having snuck up on a bunch of teams, they're not going to sneak up on anybody.
No,
this
they're
year.
not. KB does have some horses back with Brad Stewart. Solid team. Rensselaer is going to be pretty interesting. I'm going to go out on a limb. Bombers at home edge the Cougars.
Well, I was hoping you were going to pick KB, but because this is another
And KB's my number 10 team in the area top 10 too.
Rensselaer is a team that really hasn't been talked about very much, this off season. But I think they're another team. When you look at their sectional, that's kind of a wild card team that you gotta talk about. I mean, certainly you have Wheeler and maybe North Judson. We'll see how they fare during the season. But Rensselaer is a solid team that year in and year out. They prove to be a pretty tough matchup for anybody come sectional time. I like the Bombers at home. I've been down there. It's a rough atmosphere if you're an opposing team. And with this being such a huge rivalry and what happened last year, Rensselaer's going to be ready for this one. I like the Bombers to win this one. And now the final game. It's our game. It's myself and Andy Wilgus. We're going to be with 2 crews. This is our other game. Crown Point traveling to the Inferno.
The leather helmet game. It's the leather helmet.
Hey, it's
this guy's helmet.
Yes, it is. I mean, it's like playing for something like this. I've seen that trophy. It's an old raggedy helmet that they have on some stand. But Bob, this is a really interesting matchup.
This was a great game last year.
It was.
Wasn't
It was a great. It was a one touchdown game. It was very competitive. Lowell had their chances, and you know what? Jake Jazz had a great coming out party for Crown Point. Made some big plays down the stretch, and Crown Point was able to win. But now, with this game being at Lowell, Crown Point loses some starters on offense. Of course, as you mentioned, earlier, they bring back a ton on defense, and Lowell has number 6 George Fields.
1,800 yards last year.
Yeah,
in 10 games.
Hey, and we had him on our program before on our weekly show before the season started. I knew he was going to be big, but now he as a senior, we know it's his team. They've kind of unveiled a few new offensive formations. They might have show a few different wrinkles in that game against Crown Point. But Bob, I heard you have something special planned for this.
Well, you have your cheesehead, right?
Yeah.
This is going to be Poto's power play pick of the week. And I can only do this with the props I had. I'm picking for my power pick, my lock. I think it's going to be a great game, but I'm going to go with Crown Point at the Inferno, and another type of game from last year. I think you're going to see Tristan Peterson and George Fields trade big runs after big runs, but in the end, I just think that Crown Point defense, I know they had their struggles in the scrimmage. I don't put a lot of stock in scrimmages because it's just glorified practice, but I think with the way Andrean managed to expose some of the things there defensively, with the way they were running on them, I think Steve Strader's going to have his team's attention this week. I think you could call it a good night if they hold Fields to 150 yards. I think that's going to be the case. I think they're going to get a turnover or two, and I like Crown Point to win this one by a touchdown. That's my power play pick of the week.
Well, I think there's a couple of wild cards. I think we don't know. We didn't see their starting quarterback during the scrimmage. I'm assuming he's healthy, but if he takes a couple of hits, is he going to be thinking about that shoulder? I don't know. I think Lowell's going to stack the box. I think they're going to, try to force Jake Jazz to show what he can do to prove that he can still throw the football effectively even with that hurt shoulder. So, if he comes out and plays like we know he can play, Crown Point's definitely going to win this ball game. If for some reason he can't play, this game becomes incredibly interesting because
it's already interesting.
Well, I think it becomes even more intriguing because I think it gives Lowell a much better chance to win. I think Lowell's going to be able to put up some points with Fields running the football, but they can't get too fancy. I wouldn't really try to tinker too much with these new offensive formations. I would just get in the power eye and plow up the middle of Fields. I just don't think Lowell's defense is good enough to hold Crown Point to a low point total. I think Crown Point's going to win this one. So I'm taking the Bulldogs.
All right, there you go.
So those are our picks for this week. We'll do our tallies for next week. We'll see where we're at after week 1, and we'll do this again week 2. So,
all right.
All right. So for Bob Pertowski and JT Hoyo, thanks for watching.